The X-Files is a long-running show that during its initial run lasted 9 seasons and produced 202 episodes. Now, like all long-running shows, not every script written actually makes it to the small screen. There are often ideas that get left on the cutting room floor for a myriad of reasons. The script could be too similar to an existing episode, it could be too costly to produce, the script could be boring, or it's just simply a bad idea and doesn't fit the tone of the show. So I thought for fun we could take a look at 6 of these unmade episodes. But before we begin, because the algorithm is a cruel mistress, please subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications so you never miss another upload. Now, having sold my soul to the Dark Lord, let's begin. Dark he was and golden-eyed. Eugene Victor Toombs, one of the most recognizable and straight-up creepy antagonists in the X-Files first season, was suggested to make another comeback. And you might be thinking, who could come up with the idea of resurrecting this stretchy, liver-eating mutant? Well, that would be the monster himself, Doug Hutchison. While Toombs did ultimately meet his end to what was one of my childhood fears, which would be getting caught inside of an escalator, this episode was being set up as a prequel of sorts, diving into more about Toombs and what exactly he was. Doug was a huge fan of his role, and so he got to work writing up a script. He sent the script to Chris Carter himself, but for apparent legal reasons, it was never read. His version of the character was greatly different than the one concocted by Glenn Morgan and James Wong, and I mean greatly different. His version of Toombs had him as an incarnation of a ravenous, liver-eating Central American Indian god. He would have also been used as an experiment to find the Fountain of Youth, but after being given an experimental drug, escapes from the asylum he was being held in and then goes on a liver-eating rampage. The episode would feature a lot of flashbacks and include a one-on-one showdown between the monster and Scully, but unfortunately for Doug, this episode never came to be. I'm confused by the entire thing anyways because he said it was to be a prequel, yet he's locked in the asylum where he was placed after the agents caught him in the episode Squeeze. Alternate Little Green Men. The Season 2 opener Little Green Men featured Mulder as he traveled to Puerto Rico to investigate the sudden reactivation of what was a long-abandoned SETI-like communications center. And what was going to be so different about this alternate version? Well, Mulder was going to Russia instead. Chris Carter was writing the episode but ran out of time, so thankfully, more competent writers, Glenn Morgan and James Wong, changed the location to Puerto Rico, as filming in Russia would have been a much more costly location. Outside of that, it doesn't appear as though much else was changed about the episode, although we wouldn't have gotten the great Jorge.
No, Jorge, don't touch that red button. No ho on the rojo.
Untitled story about Abraham Lincoln's ghost. Before running off to helm the sister series Millennium, Morgan and Wong began writing a story about Lincoln's ghost haunting the White House. Glenn Morgan had always wanted to write an episode about Lincoln's ghost, with Mulder and Scully investigating the apparition. He had done a lot of research on the subject, but ultimately it never happened as both Glenn Morgan and James Wong lost a lot of their passion and interest for the subject after a mass amount of rewrites for the episode Musings of a Cigarette-Smoking Man sorta killed their spirits. They also didn't like the fact that in the aforementioned episode, Cigarette-Smoking Man was turned into the de facto assassin of John F. Kennedy, and they didn't want to write another episode about a president that was assassinated. In its place, however, was the episode Never Again, in which Scully gets embroiled with a man who is controlled by a spooky tattoo. Original version of Christmas Carol. In the aired version of Christmas Carol, Scully receives a mysterious phone call that leads her down a path where she ultimately finds a little girl who may be the daughter of her deceased sister Melissa. While David Duchovny was off promoting his film Playing God, a Scully-centric episode was written called Christmas Carol. With Mulder away, Vince Gilligan, John Sheban, and Frank Spotnitz decided to craft a story that would have been a retelling of the classic 1951 British version of A Christmas Carol, placing Scully in a spot not too dissimilar to that of Scrooge. This idea was scrapped, however, and in its place we got the episode we know today. Untitled Religion Story. Tim Minear, a writer on the show, pitched an idea about a criminal who also just so happened to be an atheist. While serving his time, he would hear the words from God telling him to murder an evil man and would suddenly find himself teleported outside of the prison. While the police were hot on his trail trying to track him down, it would be Mulder who would believe him to be working for the greater good. Executive producer Frank Spotnitz suggested that the convicted killer Robert Modell from the episode Pusher be that criminal, and the episode would eventually be rewritten and turned into Kitsunugari. Strangely enough though, the idea does bear a resemblance to the Season 7 episode Orison, in which serial killer Donnie Pfaster finds God and escapes from prison through supernatural means. The Unsolved Mysteries episode. Vince Gilligan came up with the idea of doing a crossover between both the X-Files and the classic show Unsolved Mysteries. The episode would feature Robert Stack as he presents a case with unknown actors filling in for the roles of Mulder and Scully. They however decided this wasn't a good fit for the show, and Vince instead decided to focus his attention on the episode Bad Blood. I, however, think this was a missed opportunity, but would have had David and Gillian playing the roles of Mulder and Scully. The episode does bear some resemblance to 2 other episodes though, most notably X-Cops, in which the agents are being followed along by a camera crew from the Cops TV show, and Hollywood AD, where a film is being made about a case the agents are working on, with Gary Shandling playing the role of Mulder, and Téa Leoni, David Duchovny's wife at the time, playing the role of Scully. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and thought it would be fun to do something a little different. Don't worry, the main X-Files videos are still coming, plus a lot of other ideas I have. Let me know down in the comments if you think any of these treatments would have made for a good episode. Thank you for watching and take care.